that was Leon. I hope soon we'll be able to see some of these plants in garden centers and things like that. I know it's not like immediately you'll be able to cultivate them, but hopefully somebody has got an idea or got an idea now, and we'll be able to see them. Okay, so now we're quickly going to listen to research overview. Some of you might have heard about the research that SAGIC did, the status of the industry. So over to Bernadette Eksteen, that's going to give us the feedback on the research.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you for the opportunity of being able to be with you today. Let me just click to my next slide. I trust you can all see that.
Yes.
Thank you. So just as a little bit of background, towards the end of last year, SAGIC, together with the member associations, decided to take on a research project relating specifically to inputs that we were required to give to the AgriCETA. That inspired the whole process of actually being started. And together with the member associations, we worked out the framework for this research project. And the key thing for this was really to inform what is the status of the green industry and focusing on the various training aspects that are available both formally and informally. So in terms of the actual research report or the status quo document, which we will be releasing after the webinar today on our website, you will see that it covers a number of aspects, all relating to the green industry, and I'm very briefly going to just highlight the key aspects relating to each of these. So firstly, SAGIC, as you know, is an umbrella body. Currently, we have the 7 member associations that are indicated there on your right-hand side that are on board with us. We continually work towards increasing the member associations that participate at SAGIC so that we can be more representative of what the green industry actually is all about. I've already highlighted the purpose of the report, which was really to focus on the training and related matters, but then also to look at the relevance of SAGIC and how this can be enhanced in future to better serve its members and the people of South Africa. For this forum, I don't think it is really necessary to delve into what does the green industry do. I have, however, set it out in the report if you're keen to have a look at that in more detail. The first aspect that we touch on in the report is something that is known as the standard industrial classifications. Now, the reason why I've started with this is because it has an impact on the green industry on various levels, because it is the way in which government agencies across the world classify various industries. The purpose of this classification is to really facilitate the collection, presentation, and analysis of data to promote uniformity and comparability in the presentation of statistical data. So that's really a big mouthful. So what does that mean in simple terms? Well, in simple terms, in South Africa, the Stats SA has divided our industries into these 21 sections. And according to these 21 sections, all reporting relating to that industry needs to be undertaken. So as you can see on my slide, it's a little bit small, but these are really, really very broad headings that under each of those have numerous occupations, trades, activities that are happening. So if we look at the standard industrial classification for the green industry, it's actually huge. because there isn't just one word that you can search on that industrial classification that covers the green industry. I searched the 9 words or terms that are given above, and in the report, I've actually captured the findings of that research to demonstrate how widely we as the green industry are categorized and classified in this system. I've just taken a caption from that, which is related to the landscape activities. And what you can see there is that there are numerous codes, there are numerous descriptions, and more importantly, there are numerous main groups under which the green industry falls. So if you recall in the previous slide, I had indicated that there are 21 main groups. And if you look at that, 11 of those is where activities of the green industry falls. So the green industry really, in terms of how the industries are classified in South Africa, is really incredibly broad. And it makes gathering statistical information at various levels really, really difficult because of the fact that it is so widespread across these data categorizations. It's also important for another reason, because when we go as industry to register our new businesses, or we have businesses and we change our focus, we need to select one of those codes to represent our business the most accurately. The reason for this is because if our businesses are large enough, we will be contributing to skills development levies, and according to those codes, the levies are then paid and paid over to the relevant CETA for future training and qualification development. So that's really something quite important to make sure that our businesses are registered and allocated to the correct SIC code. Moving from there, we look at the post-learning institutions and opportunities that are available to all South Africans in terms of training in the green industry. The formal ones that we have are divided into 3 categories: the TVET colleges, the universities of technology, and then the ordinary straight universities. Now, in the status quo report, I've taken quite some time to break all of these down in quite a bit of detail in terms of who all these institutions are and what they're offering. But for the purpose of today's presentation, I'm really just going to give you the key aspects relating to each of those. So in terms of the TVET colleges, which are really for your trades and occupations, there are 50 public registered and accredited TVET colleges in South Africa. And unfortunately, not one of them have a dedicated program that is related to the green industry. Of these 50, 60 offer programs in primary agriculture. And interestingly enough, that contains a module in plant production, which is then promoted as giving individuals the skills to pursue careers in nurseries and botanical gardens. One module out of a qualification. The universities of technology are another one of those formal learning institutions. And in total, there's 7 of those, of which only 5 have qualifications that are relevant to the green industry. Of those 5, we know that the green industry has a very active relationship with at least 3 of them. The challenges around work integrated learning, particularly in this category of formal learning institutions, is something that is synonymous to all these institutions. And it's a real challenge that all the universities of technologies face. And I'll touch on that in a bit more detail just now. In terms of mainstream universities, there are 19 in South Africa, and all of them have departments and offer programs that are related to the green industry. They're mainly, though, in conservation, environmental management, etc. As I've already said, more detail around all of these is available in the status report. On doing this research, we thought it was important to zoom into the universities of technology, as in terms of formal education, there are numerous qualifications and interactions that we have with them, and maybe there's a contribution that the green industry can make or assist these universities of technologies with in terms of the greater involvement of industry at these institutions. So for each of these institutions in the report, you will see we provide quite a bit of detail relating to the current qualifications that are being offered, the average student numbers, trends, work integrated learning, even future qualifications that these institutions are investigating and looking at in terms of developing for future generations, and then also the challenges and the recommendations for industry to consider in terms of assisting them or actively participating. So please have a look at that when you have an opportunity to look at the status quo report, because there are numerous things that I believe we can assist with quite easily. I've already spoken about the relationship that the green industry has with these universities of technologies, but it's really at two levels. One, in terms of member associations assisting the guest lecturers, external examiners, taking students in for work integrated learning, etc. But then there's also the aspect of qualifications and industry assisting the institutions to make sure that their qualifications are relevant in terms of the needs of industry through the various boards and meetings that they set up throughout the year. So please try and actively participate in those forums when the opportunities arrive. There's another body that has an impact on our qualifications realm, and that is the Quality Council for Trades and Occupations. Now, many of you may not have heard of them before, but this is a body that is established in terms of the Skills Development Act, and it has quite an important role to play, as its role is to oversee the design, implementation, assessment, and certification of occupational qualifications. And that relates mainly to qualifications that are outside of the ambit of formal universities and universities of technology. So those relate mainly to qualifications at levels NQF level 2 to 4 and even level 5. I list the responsibilities of the QCTO there because it's really something that we are not that familiar with, but it's something that we will get to know more and more in the future, because the qualifications that are registered these days at those occupational levels is no longer happening as the CETAs where it used to happen, but is now happening here at the QCTO. And I can advise that currently we've already got 4 of the green industry qualifications registered at the QCTO, and I've listed them there. The qualifications at NQF level 2, which is the garden worker, and then at level 3, which are the supervisor qualifications for garden centers, the landscapers, and the nursery industry. So then we move on to the SETA environment, the Sector Education and Training Authorities. Now again, these are also developed in terms of legislation that we have here in South Africa. And as I indicate, there are 21 SETAs in South Africa. And at a glance, the green industry can potentially benefit from at least 9 of those SETAs. In the status quo reports, I give quite a lot more detail around which 9 SETAs there are, but it's quite diverse. I'd like to focus on the relationship that SAGIC has with the AgriCETA specifically, because through the years we've had quite an active engagement with the AgriCETA at various levels. The first level is qualification development. Now, most recently, we've developed the qualifications for the nursery production manager and the nursery assistant manager at levels 4 and 5, the garden center department manager, and the garden center branch manager. For the landscape contractors, we've developed at level 4 and 5, the landscape contractor qualification with a part qualification in the garden services contractor. Now, you'll say to me, but Bernadette, why don't we know about these qualifications yet? The reason for this is that as much as what SAGIC together with the AgriCETA have developed these qualifications, they're currently going through the internal process to register. So that seems to be taking quite some time, but we hope that in due course these qualifications will be released for us to be able to undertake training in them. The current qualifications that we're developing is the landscape design qualification, which has a part qualification at NQF level 4 for the garden designer, which we anticipate to deliver to together with the AgriCETA in February, March next year. In terms of future qualifications, we're currently exploring the ambit of the landscape irrigation qualifications at various levels, and we will advise on the development thereof as soon as we have received feedback. Other activities that we're involved with in terms of the AgriCETA is the issue of horticultural subsector plans, and it was exactly this plan that gave us the nudge to actually undertake this research. It's an incredibly comprehensive plan for all the sectors that the AgriCETA is responsible for. There are 13 in total, of which horticulture is one of them. For each of these sectors, the AgriCETA prepares a subsector skills plan, and those get submitted to the Department of Higher Education and Training, and that basically informs all the training needs and shortfalls going forward into each year. And it's quite important that we make sure that we give or use this opportunity to give the Departments of Higher Education and Training their heads up in relation to the training needs and vacancies that are hard to fill, and more training opportunities that need to be created in order to ensure that the green industry has that level of skill that it requires to function. In terms of the qualifications that we currently have registered at the AgriCETA, I'm not going to read all of those, but they're there on my screen. As you can see, they are at various levels, and these skills are still actively being trained by various service providers. And in the status quo report, you can actually see a list of how many service providers are training these qualifications, and also what the typical learner throughput is of individuals through these training programs. And they should be adding value to the green industry in terms of skills upliftment, etc. Further, in terms of the general SETA environment, there are 2 other SETAs that we know of in the green industry where we actively use some of the qualifications that they have registered. One of those is at the services SETA, where there's a garden worker qualification, also at level 2, that is registered with them, that differs from the one that is registered with AgriCETA. And then they also have a facilities manager qualification at NQF level 6 that may be relevant to some of the companies in the green industry. We've been advised by UPASA that they use the qualification for small engine mechanic from the AgriCETA quite actively within its membership body. In terms of the membership status quo, SAGIC posed questions to each of the member associations. And I'm really not, in the interest of time, going to go through this in a lot of detail. It's very detailed in our report, but it focuses on the membership categories and the membership numbers of each member association, the various training initiatives, the partnerships with the tertiary institutions that these member associations have in a bit more detail, and then also requested which can be of greater benefit to the member associations. So now the one that I think many people have been waiting for, and that is the outcome of the industry questionnaire. You will recall that in January, February this year, SAGIC circulated a questionnaire to all member associations who then passed it on to the member companies and individuals to complete. I must stress at this point that we need to keep in mind that this was all done and established and developed prior to COVID. It's hard to believe that something that's so part of our lives now was not really thought of or anticipated in January, February, when we were putting all of this together. It's just unbelievable to think how things may have changed in our industries in such a short time. But nonetheless, I think it's important as a benchmark going forward in terms of a snapshot of the industry at that time. For various reasons, the questionnaire ran a little bit later than what we had hoped, and it actually only closed early in May. It was only 5 weeks into the lockdown that was brought about by the COVID pandemic. So if we look at the survey participation, we had to create a context wherein the survey was undertaken. And the easiest way for us to do this was to have a look at the member associations and the potential members that are part of these organizations that would have taken the time to complete our survey. So if you look here, you'll see that we estimated, based on the member associations membership, that there could have been a total of 822 respondents, and we only received 100, which is a survey participation roughly of 12%. Now keep in mind, this is predominantly only from our member associations. It was clear from the statistical analysis that despite the fact that we placed the survey open to the public on our website and social media platforms, that the majority of the participants, well, actually just about all of them, because you can see other was really only 1%, were from our member associations. So folks, what I'm trying to say is that this is really just a snapshot in time. One can almost consider it not fully representative of the green industry at large, but I do believe a good snapshot nonetheless. In terms of this, the primary business activities of most of the industries that participated, you'll see there was the landscape architecture, planning and design aspect, followed by the nurseries and garden centers, which makes sense because SANA had the biggest or has the biggest membership in relation to the other member associations. In other words, it is the biggest member association currently of the green industry. We need to note here that other is not far behind. And the reason for this is because other were really specialized services, such as the rose growers, those that provide fertilizer, etc., to the industry, etc. So that was really specialized services that made up that component of other. What's also interesting to note is that in terms of landscape architecture, planning and design, you may recall from the previous slide that the landscape architects actually had a very small input into our survey, but this clearly demonstrates that there are many landscapers out there that do undertake the landscape design and planning aspects as well. And that considered their primary business rather to be in the planning and design field sooner than the secondary service of construction and maintenance. In terms of the provincial distribution of the green industry, I don't think it's that in the Northern Cape province, we have the least number of green industry role players. The age analysis of the businesses I thought was also quite interesting. If you look at this collectively and you look at the years 10 to 30 years, more than 60% of our businesses in the green industry have survived the test of time, if I may put it like that. And we've actually got quite a stable activity as a sector. It's a bit concerning to see that there are so few companies, 6%, that are less than 5% or 5 years rather of age. Speaking of age, we look at the age analysis in terms of the spectrum of employment. I thought this was another interesting slide just to highlight that we use the age groups that Statistics South Africa gives as a baseline or as the defining our categories in terms of age. And you will see that the predominant people that are employed in the green industries are between the ages of 26 to 54. And this lines up very well with the statistics that are provided in the subsector skills plans for the AgriCETA in terms of the data that they have. It's interesting if one thinks about green and everybody wanting to be green and more sustainable, that we have a very small percentage of individuals that are up and coming and inspired to be part of the green industry. And I think that this is something that maybe the green industry as a collective needs to keep in mind, because at the end of the day, it's going to be these younger generations that are going to continue to take our green industry forward. So I think there's quite a role there for all of us to play in terms of ensuring the sustainability of the industry as a whole. Skills development levies is something that I touched on right at the beginning as well. 57% of our individuals or companies that participated in the survey contribute towards skills development levies. Now, this is the money that then becomes available to the CETAs to train people to get specific skills or to enhance their skills within the industry. As you would know better than me, that businesses, when you contribute towards the skills development levies, you can also claim back some of those, or a portion of those skills development levies. And what's quite astounding is that of this 57%, only 40% of the companies go through the trouble of actually trying to claim a portion of the skills development levies back. And I think this is something where member associations and SAGIC look at assisting companies with, because it becomes something that's quite lucrative in terms of sending your people out on training and then being able to recover some of those costs. The questionnaire ended off with a series of concerns that were listed, that it asked survey participants to please rate in terms of the the severity of that concern. 1 being it doesn't really matter, and 10 being of grave concern. It was really difficult to extrapolate really what the major concerns were or are in the industry, because as you can see, the range between the various concerns is actually something that's quite small. It's only 2.3. And one would have thought that maybe there were aspects that were of much greater concern that SAGIC or the member associations could assist its members with in terms of developing strategies or mechanisms to help industry in terms of trying to overcome or make those concerns less, having less of an impact on our businesses. I understand that something like drought is something that none of us can really have an impact on. But interestingly enough, at the beginning of the year, that was our greatest concern in terms of the green industry. And obviously it's understandably so, because water is something that the industry relies on quite substantially in terms of most or a lot of its activities that are undertaken within the industry. From there, we move on to the aspect of government liaison. Government liaison is something that I think everybody is aware of, that SAGIC has always had quite a role to play, whether that was at the levels together with SAGIC, SALI and SANA regarding labor rates, or whether that's with Kay and the work that the team did at the time in terms of the alien invasive species and all of those aspects. We did quite a bit of research in terms of this, and I'm really just giving you a snapshot that there is a lot of government liaison that the industry can begin to have a look at more seriously, if one can put it that way. I think particularly in our time of COVID, we realized that those relationships with government, be it the Department of Agriculture, Department of Public Works, Labor, Trade and Industry, Water Affairs, those were all places where we as SAGIC worked at quite actively during the lockdown to try and make sure that the industry could be mobilized and operate again within those lockdown restrictions as soon as possible for various reasons. So, if anything, government liaison, I think, is one of those that stands out as being something that industry needs to pick up on and to take forward a lot more earnestly than what we've done in previous years. Folks, in terms of the summary of findings, observations, and recommendations, I've really tried to share those in the presentation as I've moved along. But you will see that in the report, for each of those categories, be it the CETAs, be it the QCTO, be it at the learning institutions, there are recommendations that have come through the research process in all of those aspects. And I think it's one of those things where SAGIC as an umbrella body should really take some time to look at those findings, observations, and recommendation, and as a unison decide what it is that we would like to focus on and take forward as a collective, and then we work from there in terms of priorities and actually putting it into action versus me just trying to do justice to all of that in a quick overview. So in conclusion, I think it's only fair to say that the green industry is a vast sector, and currently SAGIC plays an important role in that, but we really represent a fraction of it. Nonetheless, there's a significant role to play in terms of the future resilience of urban, rural, and natural environments, and even within the communities that are scattered throughout South Africa. It has the potential to create numerous sustainable initiatives at various levels that in turn can create many job opportunities at a wide range of skill levels and across diverse professions, occupations, and trades. So let's stand together to determine a way forward and then take action. Thank you.
Thanks, Bernadette. Are there any questions?
Yes, Anne-Marie, we have a question from Pierre from UNISA. Pierre, can you just unmute yourself?
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, thank you, man. I very enjoyed the presentation. I can hear a lot of work was put into it. Unfortunately, sorry, man, I don't know if it's just from my side, but I couldn't see the presentation itself. So maybe if you can make it available later for if I can email it maybe later on a later stage to me. Thank you.
Yes, we can.
Okay. Yeah, you'll also see that this report, sorry, the report is also going to be available. I think in one of the next slides. So have a look on the website.
Thank you very much. Appreciate
so you can read you can read the whole report there as well. Thanks, Pierre. Any other questions?
Anne-Marie and Bernadette, just from my side, I just want to find out, is there going to be a follow-up survey at some point? Is that something that SAGIC is planning?
It is one of the recommendations, Corné, in the report, and it will be workshopped together with the member associations to ascertain how soon that should be undertaken, whether it be annually or only every 3 years or whatever the case may be. But I think seeing as this has set a benchmark, there's definitely something now that we can build on going forward.
Thank you.
Thank you. So there's one more video from one of our partners. We're just quickly going to have a look at. So we want to thank all our partners for this year. Our gold partners were Mayford, Steel, Just Trees, Turftech, Service, Evergreen Turf, and Hunter. As I said before, we cannot exist without your support. And then our bronze partners, FSG Landscaping and Prime Trees. We hope that all of our partners will stay with us. I know it's a difficult time, but together we can help this the industry grow. So we've come to the end of our webinar. Thanks everybody for attending. As I said, the recordings will be available. Have a look on our Facebook page and on the website. Also, if you are not a member of one of our member organizations and you want to become a friend of SAGIC, there are different ways of doing that. You can contact Bernadette at admin@sagic.co.za. She'll be able to help you to determine which type of member you can become. So as you can see, we're doing lots of things. We're trying to improve the green industry. And there's a few things that we still want to achieve. So thanks everybody for attending. Hopefully we'll be able to see each other next year. We made a tentative date for our convention in June. Hopefully by then we'll be able to have a proper conference. If not, we'll make an alternative date. So hopefully next year we'll be able to see each other face to face again. And good luck to enjoy the rest of the year. Thank you.